This episode was a Patreon sponsored review voted by all my favorite Patreoners. Special shoutouts to Pain and Patience, JWRDM, and Soundwave. Thank you so much for being my executive producers. As well as thank you to my producers and backers. And if you want to help them and make the show even better for the future, then go check out the description down below for my Patreon. Even as little as $1 a month, which is the bare minimum, is still a humongous help. And now that that's out of the way, on with the show. I love Halloween. Oh, greetings, friends and this is the Watchful here. Happy Halloween, everyone. As you can see, I've been a little busy collecting candy. One of the great things about Halloween is all the free candy you can get. And I better not hear anybody complaining that I'm too old for it. You're never too old for free candy. And yeah, I know I should probably be manning the bar since parties are also a big thing about Halloween. But Frigid actually told me he'd take my position, which is good because I've been told he actually has a costume that's gonna blow everyone out the water.
Once again, I am awesome. Nobody will recognize me in this.
But hey, I don't mind. I mean, after all, I got plenty of movies to keep me occupied. It may or may not surprise you guys, but I'm actually a big horror fan, so Halloween is like a second Christmas to me. I mean, it's just an excuse to watch all my favorite horror movies, and heck, I'll take that. And you know what, since you're all here to cap off the Halloween season, I'm gonna review one of my all-time favorite horror movies, Trick or Treat. For those not familiar, Trick or Treat was the creation of Michael Dougherty, who was a co-writer on X-Men 2. Now, originally, Trick or Treat was supposed to be released back in 2007, and hopefully to a worldwide theatrical release because it was actually being showed at film festivals and was becoming somewhat of a critical darling. Hell, even Warner Brothers was on board with helping this become a thing. So with so much pedigree and so much attention this movie's been getting, of course Warner Brothers would pull it from theaters literally a week before it was supposed to be released. Yep, Warner Brothers literally pulled the rug from under this movie and stopped it from getting a worldwide release. And for the life of me, I can't really find a straight answer as to why Warner Brothers did this. Some people say it was because anthologies weren't really in style anymore after Creepshow and all those other movies died off, and Warner Brothers was worried it wasn't going to do that well. Which I don't really buy. That seems like a pretty weak justification for pulling such a critical darling. However, there is another one that's more popular and one I'm willing to buy a lot more. This movie was actually supposed to be produced by Bryan Singer, who most of you might remember as the man who gave us those awesome X-Men movies. However, most of you might also remember him as the man who made Superman Returns, a movie that was literally sliced and diced so hard it made Freddy Krueger blush and forced Warner Brothers to reboot their whole franchise. And I'm sure that worked out so much better for them in the long run, but we're not here to talk about that yet. Getting back on topic, needless to say, it was completely pulled from theaters, and that may have been the last we ever saw from Trick or Treat. But then 2 years later, mysteriously and unexpectedly, without any ceremony whatsoever, it was dumped straight to video. And thanks to word of mouth, it became super popular and has become a modern day Halloween classic. But does it really deserve that title? Well, get your costumes and your candy ready, and remember the rules of Halloween, because it's time to cap off these Halloween reviews by taking a look at Trick or Treat. Our movie begins with a very bizarrely cheesy educational film. Seriously, I feel like I'm back in school again. Oh god, and I'm not wearing pants! Okay, joking aside, our movie actually begins on Halloween. Jack-o'-lanterns, decorations, people in costumes, drunk teenagers nearly running over the children, all that good stuff. But then we cut to a couple where one of them obviously did not have a good time and they want to take down the decorations a day early. And once again, Halloween gets the short end of the stick and Christmas gets to leave the decorations out 3 weeks after New Year's. I see how it is.
Go inside, put on the tape.
Huh. Offering to take down the decorations and willing to make love to her husband? Maybe she's not so bad after all.
I hate Halloween.
Never mind, she's gonna die. After our first kill of the movie, we finally get an intro sequence done in the style of Creepshow's comics. And admittedly, this part doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, yeah, I know it's like a direct homage to Creepshow and those anthology comics, but it worked in Creepshow and not here because Creepshow was a direct adaptation of those comics. Hell, it even based its style around it, and its intro was all about a kid having his comics getting taken away. So it fit much more thematically in Creepshow and not really here because, to my knowledge, Trick or Treat was never a comic series. Anyway, afterwards, we get to the movie proper, and we get one of the most interesting things about this movie. It is a horror anthology much like like Creepshow, but unlike Creepshow, its stories are not exactly self-contained. In fact, they're kind of interwoven with each other. They're all taking place in one specific area over one specific night. In fact, it's kind of similar to Pulp Fiction in that sense. And hell, anything that reminds me of Pulp Fiction gets a win in my book. I'm gonna go ahead and tackle all these stories one at a time just so I don't have to say meanwhile 100 friggin' times. Meanwhile, we have this fat kid being very disrespectful to a bunch of pumpkins. And of course stealing more than his fair share of candy. So it's up to this guy in a suit to set him straight and explain the rules of Halloween.
Believe it or not, I was just like you when I was a kid. Till my dad set me straight, that is. See, my dad taught me tonight is about respecting the dead. Because this is the one night that the dead and all sorts of other things roam free and pay us a visit. Sorry. But wait. That's right. There's another tradition. Very important.
Oh, nasty chocolate puke. Well, time to bury a fat kid. But first it's time to meet the mascot of this entire movie, Sam. And yes, he is named after Sam Hain. And no, I don't mean Samhain, aka the holiday that Halloween was originally based off of. Okay, strap in folks, time for a history lesson. The Feast of Samhain was more or less kind of a pagan holiday, almost like a harvest festival in a way. It was also believed to be a day where the barrier between the living and the dead was at its absolute thinnest, and as such was a day of celebration welcoming back the spirits of the dead. However, back in the 18th century, there was a very critical misunderstanding, dealing with Celtic texts that were describing the Feast of Samhain. And because they saw the word feast, they assumed that Samhain was a god of some kind. And because of the nature of the holiday, they also assumed that Samhain was a god of the dead. But any pagan worth their salt knows that that's not the case. Now, there is an obscure Celtic folk hero named Samhain who had a magical cow. But he's not really a god, he's actually more similar to the pumpkin. Yeah, we put pumpkins out and carve them out and make decorations out of them all the time, but they're not really symbols of gods. They're more just stories from folk tales. And Samhain is more or less just about a man who had a bad past. And yes, that same mistake also deals with the mispronunciation of his name. And because of that little mess up, our main symbol of the holiday is Sam, named after Sam Hain. Yeah, for the record, little nerdy Easter eggs about the history of Halloween fill this movie. Hell, if that's not bad enough, there's literally a kid later in the movie that explains the Cliff Notes version of where Halloween comes from. Trust me, it's actually kind of fascinating how this pagan holiday actually became the clean, wholesome holiday we all know today. Well, relatively speaking, let's be honest, Halloween is probably the least safe holiday out there. I mean, is it any wonder why so many scary movies get released around this time? It's just tradition. But this isn't a history lesson of Halloween, so let's get back on track with the movie. The man decides to bury the fat kid in the yard and almost gets found out by his neighbor. I'll talk more about him later because he actually has a story later on. He also almost gets found out by his kid, where we get a little insight into this guy not exactly being all that happy, especially considering his wife died, and he may or may not be responsible for that. I mean, just looking at that backyard gravesite, that's pretty full of freaking bodies. Obviously, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's pretty interesting to think that this guy's that psychotic. Time for another Halloween tradition to carve some jack-o'-lanterns. And just when you think he's gonna use his own kid's head for one, time for the twist. Yeah, it turns out he's raising a little mini serial killer and the kid's actually helping him carve up that fat kid's head. Like father, like son, how sweet. Relatively speaking, of course. And that was that story, and honestly, besides the intro, it's probably my second least favorite one, but honestly, it's still pretty good. It's just a bit generic for me. Yeah, I know slashers are kind of a big part of Halloween, but I don't know, I felt like there could have been more. Though I gotta admit, that twist does kind of raise this from being okay to above average. Not much else to say besides, yeah, pretty good. Anyway, it's time for the next story, my third favorite actually. Starting out with a bunch of kids going door to door getting jack-o'-lanterns for a fundraiser. But first time for a sexy cat lady to seduce them with alcohol. Anyway, they don't have enough jack-o'-lanterns, so they decide to get some help from one of the special kids. Where we see a house and oh my god! I want that house. I want that house. This house actually does show off one of the other things I absolutely love about this movie. It is oozing with Halloween atmosphere. I mean, good god, you turn the corner and there is Halloween, Halloween, and Halloween. Hell, I'd argue it's even more Halloween than Halloween. Oh crap, did I just say that out loud? I didn't mean it, Michael Myers, please don't kill me. Anyway, we then meet this little witch girl named Rhonda, and she joins along with these group of kids because she clearly has the hots for this one guy, but it's kinda obvious he has ulterior motives. And I ain't talking about that booty. No, instead they all go to the quarry and tell a spooky story about a bunch of mentally disabled kids who got literally murdered by their parents because they didn't want to deal with them and hired a school bus driver to drive them into the quarry. I mean, points for originality, I would have never seen that plot. And now they need to keep their spirits at rest by lighting jack-o'-lanterns at the bottom of the quarry. But things start getting a little spooky and Rhonda is essentially knocked out, but surprise, it was just a very mean-spirited prank. But double twist, the legend's real, and now the mentally advanced kids are zombies out for blood. Admittedly, yeah, I did kind of see this coming. You wanna know what I didn't see coming though? Rhonda just leaving the kids to get eaten. I'm not even kidding, she has the chance to save them and just leaves them. Complete with bone crunching and screaming in the background when she leaves. You are hardcore, Rhonda. Remind me to never make you angry. Yeah, that twist kind of makes this segment so good for me. But not quite as good as the next segment. About a bunch of girls going out to this town for the nice party and to pick up guys. But one of them is obviously not quite that enthused, as evidenced by her Little Red Riding Virgin outfit. And with her reluctance, she doesn't exactly find much in the way of guys out there. That is until later, but first we gotta explain a very short story early on in the movie. About a man who's a vampire? I mean, I think he's supposed to be a vampire, and he ends up literally biting the neck of this one girl, but because it's a big party, everyone assumes he's just a drunken idiot, and then, yeah. But then guess who Little Red Riding Hood ends up meeting? That's right, Mr. Vampire. Whoa. I guess he's not as dainty as we all thought. And surprise, surprise, it's the suit man from the very first segment. And now the fun can begin. That's right. They were werewolves the whole time. What, you couldn't have guessed that? I'm kinda surprised considering they have literally been shoving it in our face the whole segment.
I don't know why we drove out here when there are perfectly good guys in the city.
Fresh meat. I ate some bad Mexican, and it was a G.
All taste the same to me.
Open the door or we'll huff and we'll puff. Mom always said she was the runt of the litter.
Yeah, they've literally been dropping hints about this since the beginning of the segment, and it still comes off as a surprise. That's kind of part of the reason why I love it so much. Also, there's a nice little touch about that guy in the hot dog suit in the background, connecting this cat girl from one of the previous segments to the werewolves. Which makes you wonder, how friggin' deep does this werewolf hive go? I mean, not that I'm curious or anything. Does this make me a furry? I don't care. But seriously, werewolf chicks, give me a call. I don't mind a little rough, and I've had all my shots. What were we talking about? Oh, that's right, the movie. We then finally cut to my favorite segment and the last segment in the movie, where we cut back to actually the beginning of the movie, with the neighbor to the fake vampire. Apparently this man is a grump who hates Halloween. Yep, he's gonna die. And sure enough, little Sam approaches. Now yeah, we've seen him throughout the story and he's killed someone at the beginning, but now we finally get to see him actually take vengeance on someone who doesn't honor the holiday. And sure enough, once Sam sneaks in, he is subjected to prank after horrible prank at the hands of Sam. We also get a good look at what he actually looks like. It's the Great Pumpkin, and he's pissed! All joking aside, that's another thing I can praise about this movie. I love all the effects. I mean, holy crap, it's so refreshing to see such amazing practical effects in an era of CG. And I'm not just talking about little Sam, I mean those werewolves, holy crap. Not to mention all the nice little blood and the little zombie kids. It's just nice to see it done so incredibly well, and I will praise horror effects when they're done well. But getting back on track, it's gonna take more than a shotgun to stop little Sam. And after this all-out brawl, it's time for Sam to deliver the final blow. And finally delivering the final rule of Halloween. Well, less a rule and more of a motto. A tradition and something that everyone must ask and do around this time of year. And that is trick or treat. And it looks like this time, treat was chosen. And the neighbor is spared from the wrath of little Sam. And then we actually get a good look in his fireplace, and we find out this man was the bus driver for the special needs kids. Which further explains why he hates Halloween so much. I mean, if you committed such a horrible act, wouldn't you hate the holiday too? But thanks to little Sam putting essentially the fear of God in him, he has now grown to appreciate the holiday. And little Sam looks on one last time as if to say he's done good, and goes out to the next person who disrespects the holiday. But while some may be appeased, other spirits are still out for blood.
Trick or treat.
God, I love this movie. I cannot praise this movie enough. Literally everything I love about the holidays is in this one movie. The gore, the guts, the fun, the party. It literally oozes with Halloween atmosphere for every walks of life. the people who just love the candy, the people who love the scares. It even appreciates the long-forgotten traditions of the pagan holiday that inspired Halloween. This was a movie clearly made by fans of Halloween for fans of Halloween. It was clearly made by people who appreciate and love the holiday as much as I do, putting every inch of meticulous craft into the effects, the creatures, and the story, and telling something to truly remember as a Halloween classic for years to come. It is not hard to see at all why this is already considered a modern Halloween classic, up there with the likes of Hellraiser, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and of course Halloween. If you were to ask me to point to one thing that shows why I'm such a horror fan and why I love Halloween so much, this would be the movie I would show you. So I want you all to remember something this Halloween season. I want you to remember the lessons that this movie taught all of us this night. That Halloween is not some misunderstood, distorted pagan holiday. It is what it's always been. One giant, gory holiday with the dead and monsters of the night. And they invite you to party right alongside you. But remember the rules of this holiday. Honor the holiday, keep the decorations up, and keep those jack-o'-lanterns lit. Keep a good eye on your treats, cause you never know what could be under the skin. There's nothing wrong with a little trick, but make sure you don't go too far or Halloween will trick you right back. That there are many creatures of the night out there, and they invite you to party with them, but remember, they party hard and rough. Because on this night, the barrier between life and death is broken, and one large twisting and binding party ensues between the two of them. And on this party, it is at its most visceral, goriest peak, showing that deep down we are all children of the night. We all have our own monster under the skin. So this Halloween night, be you man or woman, child or adult, witch, devil, angel, demon, vampire, or whatever you may be, remember the rules when you go out this night, and party with the darkness and the monsters that come out to play, because this is Halloween.